In this video, I'm going to reveal the single biggest reason why you never actually stick to your yoga practice, how to shift your identity to finally become someone who loves doing yoga consistently. I used to think that it's about finding the right class or waiting till my life was less chaotic, but the truth is, a single bad experience created this invisible identity, and regardless of how much willpower I used, I wasn't able to practice consistently. So today, I'm going to show you exactly what happens when you shatter this limiting identity that you probably didn't even know you had, so that you can truly, finally become the kind of person that chooses to practice, not because you have to, but because you want to. I'm 𝗠tože𝗶𝗲, but you can call me Sushi, and on this channel, I help you bridge the gap between I know I should practice and I can't quiet my mind long enough to get started. And I've spent almost the last decade doing nothing but figuring out solutions to my students' problems about how to show up consistently for themselves on the mat to see real lasting change. And the ones that have truly really shifted their identity using these principles now can practice anytime, anywhere without a teacher or a YouTube video. And if you want to get to that place, there is a link for that in the description below. But before you click that, it's important for you to understand the psychological architecture that makes you believe that you can't be a yoga person. So let's dive right in. So you've probably downloaded the apps, you've brought the grippy yoga mats, and you've even maybe found a beautiful local studio with this serene looking person at the front desk. And maybe you went to a class, maybe two, maybe you went for a week, and then suddenly you stopped. You felt that little glimmer of peace that everyone talks about, but life has so many priorities at the moment that you wondered if this was really it or if you should start finding something else. And now, a few months later, your mat probably is rolled up in that corner, collecting dust. And each time you look at it, you see this gentle sense of guilt that bubbles up inside you. And maybe you told yourself, there's a story why you don't practice anymore. Maybe you said, I'm not disciplined enough, or I don't have the time anymore, or yoga is too slow for me and I need to do a real workout because I need to lose weight and fit into that dress. And all of these are logical, rational excuses that we've almost built to protect ourselves from one simple, uncomfortable truth. And it's that it's not your schedule, it's not the right teacher, and it's not even your body. The reason you'll never quite stick to yoga is because you've built this invisible identity that you've probably created somewhere along the line, and that identity is far more powerful than any passing feelings of guilt that you feel when you look at that yoga mat and oh yeah, maybe I gave up too soon. And every story, I believe, has an origin, has a place where it started. And your origin story of not being a yoga person probably started somewhere super mundane. Maybe it was a crowded room at a gym where you felt clumsy, or you felt super exposed, or maybe you were watching a YouTube video of someone who was instructing way too fast, and then you felt frustrated and tangled. And after a few poses, you maybe felt super awkward when a family member was watching you, and you just said, maybe this is pointless, I should try something else. And when you had this one single yoga experience, your brain took the single data point, that one moment where you felt inadequate, and it created this pair of glasses, yeah? So red lenses, really ugly flame around it. And now these pair of glasses now stains everything that you see when it comes to yoga. So when you go for dinner with friends and they rave about this amazing new yoga studio in town, none of it matters, because when the word yoga comes up, your brain then gets this cue to wear on these ugly glasses, and everything that the person says is almost tinted in red because of these glasses that you're now wearing. And the core belief, yoga is not for me, has already been set after that first memory. And this isn't just a memory, to be honest. It was the birth of an identity. And in his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear explains that the single most lasting form of change doesn't come from shifting our behaviors, but actually comes from shifting our identity. And the problem is this also works in reverse too, which means that a single negative event, like this thing that happened to you probably many years ago, can create a negative identity too. So you stop saying, oh yeah, I tried a yoga class and I didn't really like it. it, you start saying, I'm not a yoga person. You see the difference between these two? The first is an event, something that happened to you, and the second is a declaration of who you are. And it's a subtle shift in language, of course, but it's deep and it's lasting. So it remains this like get out of jail free card for your brain. And by creating this identity that you're not a yoga person, you no longer have to wrestle with the decision each time. You just don't need to go for yoga. And the answer is always no, because that's not who you are. And it's an effortless, pre-made decision. And that kind of saves mental energy. And evolutionarily, our brains have been built to save energy, and so we don't keep looking for data points. We operate from conclusions instead. So instead of revisiting that one bad experience that you had where you felt inadequate, you then just end up operating from that same conclusion every single time. And you believe with complete certainty that you are simply not the type of person that walks into a yoga class and sticks with yoga. And this belief, this invisible identity, is the single most powerful force that's keeping you from ever trying again. And it's not about the yoga, it's about the story that you've told yourself about who you actually are. And your behavior is obviously just a reflection of this identity. So you're wearing these yoga sucks glasses, and everything you see from this point on is filtered through that lens. And there's a confirmation bias to reinforce it. So your brain is now on this kind of mission to prove that you're not a yoga person and that your identity is correct. And because you firmly held on to this belief for quite some time now, it will actively seek and interpret and kind of find ways of confirming that whatever you think about yourself is true. And it'll very, very conveniently ignore or dismiss or kind of just push away things that contradict this belief. So when your friend who goes to yoga raves about how, she's feeling amazing after 5 classes, you just dismiss her as a weird hippie that has a lot of free time. And I've had this happen to me. But whenever you go, spend time with other people and they say, yeah, I went to a class in a gym and it was packed and it was sweaty and I tweaked my lower back, so sorry I can't come out to play paddle, for example. And then your brain confirms, see, I was right, yoga is awful and I shouldn't be doing it, and this is why I am who I am. And this isn't a conscious choice. It's almost like your brain's filtering system, and it's protecting your identity. That's kind of what it does, right? But it's also even more scary because there's a social reinforcement layer to this, where you're gravitating towards people who also hold that similar belief. So when you're with them, all you're talking about is the thrill of a 21K run or how sweaty and difficult that HIIT class was last week. And then it becomes this kind of echo chamber, and your social circle also becomes this living, breathing confirmation of your bias. And this is how it works. Basically, you have this identity. You believe, I'm not a yoga person. And then this informs your behavior. And because of this identity, you avoid yoga classes, you stop reading articles that talk about the benefits of yoga, and you don't engage in conversations with people who always talk about yoga. And then your reality, which is a consequence of your behavior and this echo chamber that I talked about, contains no positive yoga experiences. So your friends don't do yoga, your fitness routine doesn't have any yoga in it. And then the last part is this confirmation, where your reality kind of provides this constant, overwhelming proof that your original identity was correct. So you keep reinforcing to yourself, of course I'm not a yoga person. Look at my life, look at my friends, look at what I do. I'm just not that kind of person anymore. And so your behavior follows your identity, and your reality confirms your beliefs. So now what you've done is you've successfully constructed a world in which you're right. You are in fact not a yoga person. Not because you were born that way or anything like that, because you built that reality brick by brick, starting with this one shaky foundation on one bad afternoon where you felt clumsy and exposed. And escaping that reality feels less like changing a habit or just being more consistent with yoga. And it feels far more like you're betraying who you actually are. And at this point, you might be thinking, okay, that's a bit I feel personally attacked, but so what? So what if I'm not a yoga person? I don't have to be a yoga person. I run, I lift, I do Zumba. So what's the problem? Just because you're a yoga person doesn't mean everyone has to be a yoga person, right? And I completely get that. But the cost of this mistaken identity isn't just that you're not someone who's like exercising enough or things like that. The cost is that you're missing out on this unique, and increasingly with so much research coming out, it's like almost essential to what the kind of life we live in today. And other forms of exercise simply don't provide what yoga provides. So let's compare yoga to something popular like Zumba, for example. Zumba is fantastic. I've tried it in my time when I was living in Bangalore. It's high energy, it's social, it's fun, it's an excellent cardiovascular workout. The results are often quick and visible. You can burn calories really quickly, you can build stamina, you might even lose weight super quickly. And it's also a great way to move your body and meet new people. But yoga operates on a completely different paradigm altogether. It's not just about cardio or calorie burn. You're missing out on the deep beneficial effects of like improved mobility, reduced risk of injury. You're missing out on better sleep, on teaching your nervous system how to downregulate in like 10-15 minutes based on some breath work. You're missing out on sharpened focus. You're missing out on the direct benefits of mindfulness in motion. And modern life, with its endless notifications and pressures, keeps our sympathetic nervous system constantly on this kind of high alert state. And this floods our body with stress hormones like cortisol. And because we have so much cortisol in our system, we know that it's linked to a whole host of problems that we see today, from anxiety to a poor sleep to a compromised immune system, you name it, you know what I'm talking about. The world has all these problems. And so the cost of saying, I'm just not a yoga person and I'll do something else and call it yoga is profound. You're not just avoiding a workout, you're kind of denying yourself of one of the most powerful stress management tools in today's world. And you're choosing to navigate this relentless, endlessly noisy environment with almost like one hand tied behind your back. And in a world that constantly demands more, you're willingly giving up the one single thing that could potentially like help you, you know? And this is the true price that you're paying for repeating this story that you told yourself probably years ago, and you've been trying to prove right ever since. And so for years, you've just like operated under this false assumption and this belief that you can never really truly stick to yoga isn't a reflection of your character. It's not about your discipline. It's not about finding the right teacher or your physical ability. It's the ghost of a single past experience that created this identity, and then you just spent years kind of proving that you're right. And the story of I'm not a yoga person, a story that was obviously built on a shaky foundation, is now kind of showing you your reality, where everyone you spend time with, everything that you do has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But as we've seen today, we have to examine this identity and shatter this identity when we can see that this is not, really truly it's not robust. And if we provide ourselves with continued and new evidence that might not be true. And so by questioning your beliefs and by rewriting this kind of internal monologue, you can build a new reality. You're literally reclaiming the power to define who you are, even if you're an adult. And as James Clear says in his book, this is the most practical way to change who you are, because you don't change what you do, you kind of shift your identity, and that then informs what you do. So we've diagnosed the real problem today, but if you want to watch the full version of this video, and this is an hour-long training, maybe longer, where I actually teach you what journaling prompts to go through, how to run new experiments in your life to kind of change your reality. This is inside the Yoga Mastery program. It's the first module inside the Mindset module. So use the link in the description below to set up a call with me where we can chat and see if you might be a good fit. But if you resonated with what I shared today, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos on how to master your mind using yoga and change your identity to someone who actually practices yoga consistently. So if you're struggling with anything more specific, make sure that you comment that down below. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have. But as always, thank you so much for watching till the very end. I hope you have a lovely day ahead, and I'll see you in the next one.